Welcome to another video on how to integrate Google tools into your classroom. Today we're going to be taking a look at Google Forms. And honestly, for me, Google Forms is one of those that kind of began my journey. It's the tool that really started me off. So first off, we're going to, from the Google homepage, we will select our waffle, go into your Google Drive. From your Google Drive on the top left, you'll hit your new button where it'll drop down some different options. We want to select more, and then we're going to hit Google Forms. And this will open up just a blank template of a Google form. And there are a couple things that we're going to do kind of the housekeeping nature just to get it, to be able to personalize it. The first thing I'm going to do, it already has a question here. Let's get rid of this. So we're going to select the trash can to kind of clean that up. Then we want to label this. So the scenario I'll be kind of pitching to you today is that I've just taught a lesson on adding fractions with unlike denominators, and so I want to give this a title so that it has a name within my Google Drive. I'm going to call this Adding Fractions Practice Activity. Now, once I've done that, you'll notice the title will transfer itself here. If you want to change this, I can just call this Adding Fractions Practice. Notice that it doesn't change what you've called it here. So if you've got something like Lesson 2.2 and the students, for them that wouldn't mean anything. The two names here and here can be different. However, once you name it up here, this is the name that's going to go into your Google Drive. This is the name the students will see. The second thing I'm going to encourage you to do, particularly with primary and secondary or elementary students, I'll say, with our elementary students, I think it's a good idea, and it may be for across the board. I just tend to have a scope for elementary students since that's what I teach, is but to come here and to add a design to it so that when you say, hey, go and click here, it's just an easier way to say, are you on the right thing? When it'll give you some different themes. But if I were to select the color pencils, with every Google form that I use, I select something different, and then I'll call out, hey, you know you're on the right place when you see the color pencils at the top. Now from here, we have kind of customized the theme. We've added a title. Here comes some important steps. We want to select the settings button, which is right to the left of the send in the top right corner. I am going to select settings, and there are a couple of things I want to make sure are checked. First off, I want to collect email addresses. Be mindful that everyone who is on this is going to be logged on through their Gmail address or the student email address. This is going to be what identifies them, so they don't have to type in their actual name. Secondly, I want to, in this particular scenario, since it is for my students, I'm restricting it only to Boyle County users. For folks who may stumble upon this outside of our district, you may have a similar option for your district. Another thing is that you can opt to limit just one response. Now, the versatility of the Google form is really quite endless in my opinion, and I think this is one of the cornerstones of the tools that I use in my classroom. It can be a bell ringer, it can be or flashback or whatever the verbiage or the terminology you might use for that thing that the kids do when they come into the classroom. It could be that. It could be the formative assessment at the end where you only want them to do it once. So you could check this box where you can. For us right now, we're kind of, the scenario again is I've just taught it. I want them to go practice. They may do it the first time and do it horribly and may need a second time, or they may go home and say, hey, I need some extra practice. So I don't care if they complete this multiple times. So for me, right now, these are appropriate buttons. Presentation, I really don't mess with this. The progress bar would just show you a bar on the bottom, just kind of showing you how are you progressing through the activity. I'm only going to put 4 questions on what I'm doing, so these would be for some more lengthier things, just to let the students kind of see how they're going. But last and certainly not least is this is the most important step in settings, is that you want to come here and make it a quiz. And then from the quiz options, you want to make sure that you have it immediately after each submission. Now, I'll talk about the whys and the certain scenarios in which this is important. I am going to make today just a multiple choice only activity. For that purpose, I want to release the grade immediately after each submission. Be mindful. Depending on the content, this may change. If you need for students to write or type in a written submission, you might want to select later because you want to physically look at it first and score it, and then it will send it to their email. For what I'm doing today, again, within the scenario that I'm pitching to you, I want it to be immediately. I want to know that the students, are they getting it? Are they not getting it? And vice versa, I want the students to know, are they getting it or not getting it? Again, the scenario may change which of those you select. I want them to see what they missed. I want them to see what that was the actual correct answer, and then point value. Now, again, you may want to turn this correct answer off if you are allowing them to do it multiple times, because they may go through and say, well, that's the correct answer on number 3. Let me get back to it. And so again, you have the ability for a lot of customization in that. But then we're going to save that. Now it's time to making the actual quiz itself. So the first step we're going to do is we see this bar here that's called add a section. I'm going to add a section. Now for me, personally speaking, and again, this is just my preference, I like for each question to have its own page. Therefore, only that question and that question alone is what the student is focusing on. The title section, I'm just going to call it question number 1. Then here, as you notice, I can add text or a description. I can add an image. I can add a YouTube video. Again, this is the first video of several that we're going to talk about Google Forms. I'm kind of going to give you the basics right here. We're simply going to add a question to this. My question here is I'm going to solve, and we're working on fractions, 2/3 plus 1/4. Oh, plus 1/4. Now notice that the question type right now is short answer. I want to change that, but this will give you a look at what are some of the different types of questions. You can ask a question where they upload a file. Again, in that scenario, that would be one that you cannot release the score immediately because it's going to take you having to review that. We will look at those scenarios in future videos, but for right now, to really, what I think is to benefit the most from this is to be operating in that multiple choice wheelhouse. We're going to operate in there. So once we get it to multiple choice, we want to add our 4 choices, which is kind of the standard. And you can add more if you like, or you can add less if you like. That's up to you. But then a really important button to select here is this. We want this a required. Once I make it required, I'm going to come over to answer key and I'm going to select it. Now I haven't put any answers in, but I'm going to make option 1 correct, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to make this worth 4 or 1 point. Again, depending on how you teach, you may assign point values and such differently. But then notice, and I should talk to it, I went back to edit question, and now I'm back to this screen. It'll say in the parentheses here, though, if this is worth 1 point, here is my correct answer, this is required. Now I need to put my answers in. The correct answer is 11/12. I'll put in a handful of just incorrect answers, obviously. And let's see. And again, I'm not having a lot of time to think through. I like to typically think predictive what they got wrong, but that's not the purpose right now. Now I've got this. Now you're thinking, well, what I can do is, if you notice, if I hover over the correct answer, I can move it around. And I'll show you why that's important. So I can kind of get them in the right order. I'm going to have it hanging out right there. I've made 1 question. It's that quick. Now here is how you expedite the process, because I think a lot of the pushback on integrating technology is there's a lot of time invested on the front end of the process of creating these tools. And there is. I can't steer you astray and say there's not. It just happens like this. But there are quicker ways to expedite the process. This is one of them. I've created a question. Now I'm going to come here and I'm going to select. Notice I selected out of it. I'm on the section portion now. I select the 3 buttons here. It gives me some options. I can delete, merge. I want to duplicate it. When I duplicate it, notice I come down here, that question is back again. I'm going to name this question 2. I'm going to come in here. I'm simply going to change this to 2 new numbers. And I'm going to find that correct answer with the green check. And I'm going to change up, obviously. I want to change some of the numbers. And give me a, we'll go back with 3/4. Again, I'm sitting here trying to, the math teacher in me wants to work harder than I need to. But now I can take that answer, I want to move it up here this time. So again, see how quickly I just did that, and then that's done. All the things are correct. The correct answer is here. The problem is here. Answer key, it's worth 1 point. It is mandatory. Select again, duplicate the section, move down to number 3, and then I am right there again. Solve. If I wanted to, I could plug in some word problems. For time's sake, I'm not going to. I just want to show you how quickly you can do this, so to speak. And then here in a second, we're going to actually flop over and we'll take a look at just some student work. And let's see one. So again, I may want to move this around just to kind of keep the correct answer. But once again, question 3, how quickly I'm making these questions. So when you think about the time, I would argue making a worksheet from scratch, I can do this just as quick. It's just that the format is just different. Duplicate the section. This is question 4. And again, if I wanted to type a word problem in this section, I could do that. If I wanted to actually put a picture, I could do that. There are a lot of different things. We will explore those in future videos. I can't stress that. I don't want to leave you hanging with questions, kind of going, well, can I do this? Can I do that? Because I want to definitely be here to kind of open your eyes to what are the possibilities of this tool. So this is because I genuinely, I think this is one of the good ones. I use it in so many different ways, whether it can be a formative assessment, it can be that practice activity for the one-to-one folks who are able to take their Chromebooks home. I mean, it could be homework, and again, the time it saves you on the back end, which I'll show you in just one second. Let me throw in just one more answer. Let's move this guy around up here. And that's it. I'm done. I have just completed that activity. So now I need a place to link it. Now, for a lot of folks, if you're within our district, you can link this to Boyle County, your Converge page, or if you're using a Google Classroom, you can use that. Or you use QR codes. For some of the younger grades who are using iPads, you can create a link. You can go to the link, which is right here, and copy the link and then paste that. So with Converge, you can just copy the link and create a link to your Converge page with our Google Classroom, which we're going to actually use here in just a second. We can actually go into the drive and attach it, or we got the option to create a QR code with that link. So let's go into our classroom with our and we'll hit our classroom, our Math 5. And this has been our classroom we're kind of creating and doing different things with. So it'll be our kind of home basis throughout this tutorial season, or whatever we may want to call it. So I'm going to come, and again, I want to create an assignment. And I'm going to say, hey, this is where we're adding fractions with unlike denominators for all students, or I could assign it to just a handful. Obviously, my roster is very thin with Chewbacca. I'm waiting for Luke, Leia, and those guys to join on, but they're not. But again, one of the beautiful things about Google Classroom, and I don't want to make this about Google Classroom today, but I can add a due date and so forth if I want. But let's just talk about how to link this. Again, I could go that option with just adding it from my drive. You have two options there that'll get you to your drive. You can do the upload here and then select my drive. It's going to show up there. Or you can actually select your drive here, or you can use the actual link that we copied already. I'm going to select the drive button. It's going to show what I've been working on most recently. I'm going to select that, grade importing, and then we're going to hit assign. So now we have assigned it. It's on our Google page. We've created it. That's where it's at. So now let's stop and take a look at the student end of this assignment. Okay, so now our student, Chewbacca, logs in, and Chewie will go to Classroom, and from his classroom, he is going to click on to his math course, which his instructor is John Elliott, myself. When he logs in, he's going to notice on his screen that he has a new assignment, and it says not done. When we select this, we're going to get the, we can select the activity, and we're going to get, here's the Google form that we created. So we're going to go in, and we're going to do the assignment. Once we select it, this is that student view, and I want to just kind of give you a little bit of touch on, hey, what are your students going to see? The first thing it's going to do is going to kind of ask you to confirm your identity. This is chu.baca@stu.boyle.kyschools.us. That's what's going to be recorded. If not, they may need to switch. Being logged onto a Chromebook, this will be ensured that they are in the right place. Next, it's going to go ahead, and then, again, you're seeing it one question per page. I'm just going to answer these really quickly to go through. Chewy can fly the Millennium Falcon, so he is super great with math. And then from there, we'll flip over and kind of see what does it look like, what kind of feedback and so forth is he getting. So he flies through it. Now, here's a great option that I love. Notice it before he hits submit. He's got the option, send me a copy of my responses. This is a good way to them to have a digital view of, okay, give me some practice. I want to see exactly how did I do, what were the questions and so forth. So he clicks turn that on, then he's going to submit it. Now before, it says submitted, a response submitted, and assignment marked as done. This is the beautiful thing about it being linked with Google Classroom. If this were linked with Converge or a Blackboard or any other type of setting, it's not going to do that. But this is where Google Classroom and Google Forms working together, it takes an initiative to take that next step to go in Google Classroom. It shows, hey, this student has done that, and it's going to notify the teacher also. But then I want to select view my score. So we got 4 out of 4. It allows him to go through and take a look at how he did. Close this out. We're going to open the assignment again. And this is going to prompt me, and I'm going to go back to Google Classroom, so I can kind of close this one out. And if you'll notice, it showed me as completing the assignment. So I can come back to my stream, and it shows that Chewbacca has done this assignment. I think that's one of the good things, as we notice, we've done a lot of what we've done. We've completed them, and it allows the students to kind of keep track by it showing them and communicating to them that they've done it. Likewise, we go into Chewbacca's email account. Now, I'm not sure how quick the turnaround will be on this. Yeah, it's already there. Google Forms is sent and says, hey, thanks, here's your work. And then it'll give them a copy of, hey, how'd you do on that? So that's, again, the student view. So let's flip back over and just check out real quickly before we sign off here. Let's take a look at the teacher view, and then we'll wrap this one up. And now we're back to the teacher view, and from the teacher view we can see that our one and only student has completed this activity. It gives us actually 2 options where you can see kind of the results. Number one is that we could select the assignment itself, and we can see who's done. And if I had a greater roster, you would see little boxes with all their names, and it would say done, and you could see that. In that, I could look at their grades, and we'll do that in just a second. So let me back up before I get too ahead of myself. I want to view the responses. So I'm going to select View Response, and this is where I think Google Form has really a really cool way of breaking down different questions. And I really wish I had more student data and to be able to show you this. But what it's going to do, it's going to give you summary. And so you can see all the students who completed it. It'll show you on this chart here, hey, what was your average, your range, give you some statistical data, and then show you how each student performed. And then you'll be able to look at per student, per question. You might be able to see what were the most missed questions and why, and so forth. So you'll be able to look at it on a question-by-question basis. Or you can flip over to individual and look at each individual student. So there are a lot of different options here. Another thing that you might want to do is if you make this, say, the day before and you've posted it, but you've got some students who are kind of quick to get on things and you don't want them on, you can turn that off to where right now at this moment this link is not accepting responses and they wouldn't be able to complete that. But I will turn it on for right now. So you can turn off an activity just by selecting that button. and it'll keep anybody from selecting it and being on it. You can also, if you want, by selecting these 3 buttons, you can delete the responses to reset it. You can select the option to get email notifications for anyone who takes a new response. I would highly advise against that because it will flood your email quite quickly. But it'll give you some different, again, the more students you have, the more this page here fills up, and you can really start to see how that data, how well your lesson, who needs help, so forth. So lots of good stuff here. On the back end here, again, you've got that option to select here. You can add a grade. He got 100, and we want to return that. We want to, you can add a comment, good job, and then return the work. And again, digitally. So not only has he finished, you've returned that work to him. So once again, we've looked at Google Forms tonight and just using it as a tool to digitalize a portion of our instruction. Be mindful that I will always preach the value of technology in instruction, but it cannot replace a good teacher. It simply makes a good teacher much more connected to today's student and provides feedback for both the student and the teacher that allows us to respond in a manner that's much quicker. So this is just an overview of Google Forms. I will be back in a week to talk a little bit more about another Google tool, and expect me to cycle back through to Google Forms, and we'll continue to go deeper, and you'll see that each week we'll continue to bring ourselves back to this Google Classroom too. So we'll be it'll constantly thread itself together, but I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.